Hello everyone, and hope all is well where you are. Let's get into today's daf, Bava kamma, daf 75, Omid A. The Gemara answers, nevertheless, Rabbi Yeshua was not present in court when Rabbi Gamliel encountered him. The Gemara asks a question from a different source, but isn't it taught in a Braita that Rabbi Yeshua said to Rabbi Gamliel, your statement is nothing, and you've already admitted to inflicting the injury yourself. This indicates that even witnesses would subsequently testify about the injury. Rabbi Gamliel would not emancipate Tavi. The Gemara suggests, what is it not the case that the difference between these two Braitot is a dispute between the Tanaim? This Tanaim, the first Braita, who says that Rabbi Yeshua's statement was, as you have no witnesses, holds that one who admits that he is liable to pay a fine is liable to pay the fine if afterward witnesses come and testify to his liability. And that Tana of the second Braita, who says that Rabbi Yeshua's statement was, as you have already admitted, holds that one who admits that he is liable to pay a fine is exempt from payment, even afterward witnesses come and testify to his liability. The Gemara rejects this suggestion. No, it is possible to understand the Braita differently. Everyone agrees that one who admits he is liable to pay a fine is exempt, even afterward witnesses come and testify to his liability. And they disagree with regard to the following this Tana, who says Rabbi Yeshua said, as you have no witnesses, holds that Rabbi Yeshua was outside the court when Rabbi Gamliel encountered him, and therefore his admission is disregarded. And that Tana who says that Rabbi Yeshua said, and you have already admitted, holds that Rabbi Yeshua was in court when Rabbi Gamliel met him, so Rabbi Gamliel's admission is a valid admission. The Gemara analyzes in detail the dispute alluded to above. It was stated with regard to one who admits he is liable to pay a fine, and afterward witnesses come and testify to his liability. The Rav says that he is exempt, and Shmuel says he is liable. Amarava Ba'ahilai. What is the reason for the ruling of Rav? With regard to theft, which is subject to a fine of double payment, with the Torah states, if the theft shall be found in his possession alive, whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he shall pay double. Exodus 22:3. The verb shall be found is doubled. As the verse states, himatze timatze. Rav derives from the repetition that there are two matters that are found. The double payment is imposed only if it is found hamatze. It is revealed that he stole the item through the testimony of witnesses, and the theft is found timatze, is determined through judges. This excludes one who incriminates himself through an admission. Rav asks, why don't the Torah teaches here? This principle is already derived from a different verse. The one whom the judge convicts shall pay double to his neighbor, Exodus 22:8, which indicates that self-incrimination is insufficient to render one liable for double payment. Rather conclude from the fact that there are two verses that serve as a source for this principle that one who admits is liable to pay a fine is exempt from paying even afterward witnesses come and testify to his liability. The second verse teaches this additional novelty, and Shmuel would explain the double expression differently. He would have said to you, that verse is necessary to teach that the thief himself must pay double payment. Either double payment is imposed not only upon a bailey who takes the false oath that the article entrusted to him was stolen, but it is also imposed upon a thief. On school of Hezekiah, early in the chapter in 63b, Rav raised an objection to Shmuel from the following Braita. If a thief saw witnesses who approached him with the intent to testify against him, and at that point he said, I admit that I stole an animal, but I did not slaughter or sell it, he pays only the principal. This indicates that even if the witnesses subsequently testify, the thief remains exempt from the double payment as well as the fourfold or fivefold payment. Shmuel said to him in response, what are we dealing with? We're dealing here in this Braita with a case where witnesses returned back. If witnesses did not testify at all, the Braita would be stating the obvious by teaching that the thief pay no fine. Shmuel interprets the Braita as referring to a case where the witnesses testify only that the thief slaughtered or sold the animal. Consequently, the Braita teaches that the thief, on the basis of his self-admission, is exempt from the double payment, and furthermore is exempt from the fourfold or fivefold payment, as his fine is not imposed in the absence of an obligation to pay a double payment. It says derive it. Ultimately, they did not testify. Rav raised an objection, but this interpretation is impossible, as can be seen from the fact that the last clause of the Braita teaches. Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, says, let the witnesses come and testify. This means that the testimony will be accepted, and he is required to pay the relevant fines. By inference, it may be deduced that the first Tana holds no, There's no point in the witnesses testifying as the thief will be exempted in the case. Shmuel said to Rav, isn't there the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, which stands in accordance with my opinion? When I said that one who admits that he is liable to pay a fine and afterward the witnesses testify that he committed the act, and the act is deemed liable, I said this ruling in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon. The Gemara comments, according to Shmuel, his opinion on the matter is certainly subject to a dispute between the Tanaim, as he himself was forced to admit that his opinion in accordance only with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, not that of the first Tana of the Baita. According to Rav, shall we say that his opinion too is necessarily subject to this dispute between the Tanaim? The Gemara explains, Rav could have said to you, I say my opinion in accordance with the rulings of both Tanaim and of the Baita, even according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, says that the testimony of the witnesses obligates the thief to pay a fine, even after his admission only there. In that specific case, because the thief admitted his guilt solely due to his fear of the impending testimony of the witnesses, but here in an ordinary case of admission, where there is no impending testimony to incriminate him, and he admits his guilt of his own volition, even Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, would concede that the thief is exempt from payment, even if witnesses subsequently testify that he is liable. Amar Rabbi Hamnuna, a statement is more reasonable in a case where the thief says, I stole an item, and subsequent witnesses came and testified that he stole that item. In that case, it is logical that the thief is exempt from paying the fine despite the witness's testimony, because he at least obligates himself to pay the principal amount via his admission. But if he says, I did not steal anything, if one says in court, I did not steal anything, and witnesses testify that he did in fact steal an animal, and subsequently he admits that he did steal it, and then he slaughtered or sold it, and finally witnesses testify that the thief slaughtered or sold the animal, the thief must pay the fourfold or fivefold payment despite his admission. The reason is that through his admission, he sought to exempt himself from any payment whatsoever. And according to the opinion of Rav Hamnuna, and that's the Rambam Sefer Nezicha, Hilchot Neva 3:9 to Choshen Mitzvah 348. And witnesses came and testified that he did steal an animal, and subsequently the thief says, I did steal the animal, and I also slaughtered it, or I also sold it, and witnesses came and testified that he slaughtered or sold it, he is liable to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. The reason he's liable is that through his admission, he sought to exempt himself from any payment whatsoever. In order for an admission to exempt the perpetrator from a fine, it must include an admission that he is liable to pay some payment. Rava said, in the case I have gotten the better, kipachti, the root kuf pei het is apparently Aramaic in origin. Its basic meaning is to hit or break an object. It is a common term in the Gemara for defeating, overcoming, robbing, or physically assaulting another person. Of the elders of the school of Rav, Saviv Devei Rav, the Gemara in Tractate Sanhedrin 17b states that the expression they say in the school of Rav refers specifically to Rav Hamnuna, says Rashi. Tosfot maintain that the Gemara there is referring to Rav Huna and not Rav Hamnuna. Apparently, Rav's academy continued to function after his death, as Rav Hamnuna outlived him, and Rav's most noteworthy disciples became the chief spokesman of this group of sages. It is relevant to Rav Hamnuna. The reason is that in the Baita that discusses Rabbi Gamliel's injuring his slave, he was seeking to exempt himself from any payment whatsoever through his admission. And yet, early in the Gemara, it was said that Rav Chisda stated this Baita to Rav Huna to challenge Rav Huna's opinion. And Rav Huna did not answer him that Rabban Gamliel's case was different because his admission served to exempt him entirely. The Gemara notes, it was also stated that Rav Chia Bar Abba says, Rav Yochanan says the same opinion of Rav Hamnuna. If a thief says, I stole an item, and witnesses came and testified that he stole that item, well, the thief is exempt from paying the fine despite the witness's testimony, because he at least obligates himself to his admission to pay the principal. But if he says, I did not steal anything, and witnesses came and testified that he did steal an animal, and subsequently the thief says, yes, I did steal the animal, and I also slaughtered it, or I also sold it, and then the witnesses came and testified that he slaughtered or sold it, he is liable to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment, as through his admission he was seeking to exempt himself from any payment whatsoever. Rav Ashi says, There is a Mishnah and a Braita that are also precisely formulating according to this opinion. The Mishnah, as we learned in 74b, if one stole an ox or sheep, as established based on the testimony of two witnesses, and subsequently stole or sold the stolen animal, that is based on the testimony of one witness or based on his own admission, he pays a double payment, but he does not pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. Why do I need a mission to teach in the beginning of this case, if one stole an ox or sheep, as established based on the testimony of two witnesses, let the mission teach the case more simply. If one stole an animal and then slaughtered or sold it, as established based on the testimony of one witness or based on his own admission, he pays only the principal. This will serve to teach the same principle in a less complicated manner without the need for two additional witnesses. Thank you for listening and I wish you all the best. Bye.